and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Trish McGregor and
Rob McGregor.
And our producer and tech magician, John Posey. He's a disembodied voice there, Mark. You can go to themysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our latest book is Mind-Blowing Synchronicities, the latest science, stories, and research. Trish's most recent novel is White Crows, and Rob's is called Tulpas. If you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would take a second to click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons so you never miss an episode. Please subscribe there. If you would like to have your astrology chart done to get a sense of how 2025 will unfold for you, send me an email through the contact tab on themysticalunderground.com.
Okay, our guest today is Marcus Anthony. He's an associate professor who teaches futurist studies at the College for Global Talents, which is part of the Beijing Institute of Technology. He is a futurist, a life coach, and a writer. He investigates deep futures, profound, meaningful, and sustainable visions of tomorrow. Some of the specific futures that Dr. Anthony focuses on include human and artificial intelligence, mindfulness, technology in the future, and consciousness studies. He is the author of Power and Presence, his new book, Reclaiming Your Authentic Self in a Digital World, and about 10, now actually more like 12 years ago, he wrote his first book, which I remember interviewing him for our blog. It was called Discover Your Soul Template, 14 Steps for Awakening Integrated Intelligence. He lives in the city of Zhuhai in China, in southern China. Did I pronounce that right, Marcus?
Zhuhai.
Okay, all right. So we met Marcus, as I said, 12 or 13 years ago when he came on our Synchronicity blog when we were writing a book at the time, or when he was writing a book at the time that he originally called it The Sage of Synchronicity, and that became Discover Your Soul Template. So we corresponded with him over the years until he moved from Australia into China. Then we sort of lost touch for a while, but it's great to be back in touch. Welcome, Marcus.
Thanks, Rob and Trish for inviting me. It's been a while. I do recall a few years ago that we were more in touch then. So, I guess it corresponded with my moving to China, I guess.
Right, it kind of did,
How do you like living in China?
I like living in China.
Yeah.
Do you?
I remember you moved to New Zealand first, didn't you, before China?
Yeah, I was in New Zealand it's a long time ago now, up to about 1999 I left. Yeah, then I went to live in Taiwan for 2.5 years, and then to mainland China after that.
Okay, you're originally from Australia then? Where in Australia?
That's right, yeah. Yes, I was in Australia till I was 30, and then I went to New Zealand, and then over here to Asia. I've been back to Australia once or twice to live, but basically I've been living in the Greater China region, including Hong Kong as well, since late 1999, so 25 years.
Yeah, so you probably speak Mandarin then, right?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I would like to do better, but I can use it pretty well in the spoken form anyway.
All right, good. Okay, so in Power and Presence, your new book, you write that our souls have been colonized and our hearts and minds are deeply entangled in the current socio-industrial complex. Can you talk about that and explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I had to write something to sell the book, so it seemed like a pretty good byline to me. No, but of course, it reflects something that I think is happening. You can argue about how deep that process goes into colonizing our minds and how much power we've given away. But essentially, the argument that I put forward is that we spend now a lot of our time interfacing with screens and technologies. And I don't know about in the US, but in China, it's particularly pronounced. People spend an enormous amount of their time staring at mobile technology. And of course, the more time you spend in we might call the exteroceptive gaze, that means looking out from yourself out into the world, and the less time you spend looking in or noticing yourself, the more you lose connection with the body and with the spirit, because the body is deeply connected to the spirit in the present moment. Once you lose connection with the body, then you become, well, by definition, disembodied, and it creates a kind of a trauma process besides anything else. And then we start to lose touch with who we really are. And of course, once your experience of the world is predominantly through screens, then what you see is not necessarily a function of free will or where you put your attention. It's increasingly about how the people behind the screen mediate your attention, according to their own technologies and softwares. So surveillance capitalism, you might have heard of that term by Shoshana Zuboff, is basically the idea that big tech companies process our focus in order to optimize their own profits through advertising predominantly on the internet. So it creates these echo chamber effects as one aspect of it. And our feeds these algorithms are getting better and better, I noticed now. Once you click on something or even pause on something, it'll just keep repeating it to you. And so it's very easy to get trapped into these realities or meme spaces where maybe we have not really consciously chosen them. And we're all multifaceted people. We're not simplistic people. We grow and develop over time. We're supposed to anyway. So we don't want to get trapped into these echo chambers or experience what I call algorithmic possession, where your life is basically being mediated or controlled by software rather than your own volition, and losing touch with yourself as well.
Yeah, so that's somewhat self-imposed, I suppose, and then you enter the world of the corporate technologies and but also governments, right? Does the Chinese government try to use the internet as a way of controlling people, would you say?
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah. There's an interesting argument, though, which I'm favorable to, that this kind of technocratic utilitarianism, if you want to call it, which is using technologies in order to get better control of populations, is now just as developed in the West as it is in China. Mm-hmm. In China, they can't really control people as much as they used to, because the revolution here in terms of people being able to access technology now is well, pretty much as developed as it is in the West. Of course, things are blocked and so on, but there's ways to get around it. So you can't control people in China as readily as you used to be able to. Like during the COVID epidemic, you may have seen there were some protests and even riots that broke out towards the end in the third year. Yeah. And the government couldn't really control those, and in the end they were forced to respond to it. And that's one of the reasons why we assume they ended the lockdowns in China. So yeah, in China there's definitely control of the internet. I mean, I can't access Facebook or or TikTok, or ironically.
Really? TikTok,
Technologies.
Really?
TikTok
Yeah.
started in China, is Chinese, and you can't access it?
Yeah, I guess it's the parent company. I'm not sure what the exact way to define that relationship, but yeah, in China it's called Douyin, which is pretty much the same software, except that it's more controlled by the Chinese government and regulated in the Chinese sense. Yeah.
Why
So
not
as far as
Facebook?
what's that?
Why can't you access Facebook? I don't understand what.
Yeah, Facebook is blocked here, so you can't just click on the link to Facebook and open it up.
Huh.
So it's the same with the most West, like Instagram is the same, and Reddit and all those. Most of them won't open. So you have to use a VPN to be able to access those things. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. It can be a pain in the bum, as we say in Australia, but you can get around it. I think the government tolerates that. What they're trying to do is just discourage people, but people really want to get those things, they can do it.
They can do it. What
Now,
about
how does
chat?
it?
Go
Oh,
ahead, Trish. Go
I
ahead,
was just
Trish.
going to say, what about the growth of these AI technologies like Chat, GBT, and being AI? I mean, do you see AI setting us free or plunging us deeper into the abyss?
Yeah, well, I did do a post on my YouTube channel about that a few months ago. It's a double-edged sword, as they say. I really think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity with them and a lot of good things, and we just have to bring consciousness to what we're doing. And with all this technology and any technology that's developed, there's always unexpected or unintended consequences to it. And it's hard to predict what they're going to be in the long run because as other technologies, develop around them or beyond them, they could be used or manipulated in ways that we just don't know of right now. But yeah, there's a whole heap of arguments about the good and bad things about these technologies. One of the great things is creativity, and efficiency with creativity is really enhanced by them, I think. So you can create music, even short videos. Soon you'll be able to create movies. You can already create short videos. They're a bit clumsy right now, but almost certainly over time, your capacity to create things is going to be expanded massively as long as you want to invest a little bit of time into using the technologies. And I guess the interface, the user friendliness will also be improving. So I don't think it'll be too much of a digital divide there, except that some people may not have access to computers.
So do you have access to Chat GPT and Bing AI? Is that
yeah, I do. I have a couple of apps on my phone, and they utilize the same software as ChatGPT, and they work on my phone without my little iPhone here, without me using the VPN. So,
Right.
but I can actually open the ChatGPT for OpenAI site, ironically, but it's exactly the same software.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, basically the answer is yes. There's so many of these apps that use these technologies now. Yeah, I can use them freely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
I think
you have.
it's interesting. I was just going to say, I think it's interesting they let you go to YouTube.
Yeah.
It's not blocked.
Yeah, it's blocked. Yes. So.
Oh, it is blocked. Okay.
But
So that's a pain as well.
But LinkedIn is available too because that's where we've been communicating.
No.
No.
I have to use a VPN for LinkedIn. I wish they'd maybe make that blocking a bit more powerful in LinkedIn's case. I find it a little bit of a painful medium, but anyway.
Yeah. Well,
I use it.
We're talking today from across the world, so that's
you're
Yeah.
right. It can be quite useful.
Yeah. So what's the focus of your Mind Futures work?
Well, at the moment, it's mostly to do with the kind of things we're talking about now. The interface of technologies with human consciousness and also spirituality, and how that can be enhanced or perhaps retarded by these technologies. So that's really what I'm interested in doing, and helping with other people with in the long run as well. And,
now, your students mostly Chinese?
Yeah, they're all Chinese. Yeah.
They all. Huh. Do you
Yeah.
teach in Mandarin or English or
No,
what?
no, I'm in an English language college.
Oh,
I just use a little bit of Chinese now and again.
uh,
My Chinese isn't really good enough to teach in 100% of the time anyway. But I guess if I had to do it, then I would have no choice. But it's an English language international school,
uh,
so the students are all Chinese, and they use these technologies as well. Some of them don't use them. They're not encouraged in the education system. They're not overly discouraged either. But the policy hasn't really caught up with the technology, which is a bit strange. Because you think the Chinese government will be onto it, but I've not really heard much from my bosses about what we can and cannot use. It's still kind of ambiguous. So
huh.
I use them in my classes. I encourage the students to use them. I've told the bosses I'm going to use them. I'm teaching future studies, foresight, how people can use these things responsibly, the pros and cons of it. So that's what I'm going to do. And nobody's tried to stop me yet. Haven't been.
Do you have textbooks? Do you have
I
textbooks?
rarely use textbooks, no.
No. Okay, so it's strictly all coming from you.
Yeah, I create my own stuff,
Uh-huh.
my own curriculum. There's so much stuff out there, and future studies is ongoing. So everything changes. Last month the system was things were different than this month. So
Yeah. Is your book available in China?
well, it will be. It's being translated at the moment. The last one.
Oh, cool.
It does take
All
a
right.
while though. Might be 6 months before it's available in China. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do they have an Amazon in China? I mean, is it? Or
Yeah, basically they do. Yeah. What's it? Taobao is it's called here. Amazon, used to be mainly books back in the day, and now it's pretty much modeled itself on Taobao, which was the Chinese version with all the extras. You can buy almost anything on there. So China got the drift of this, non-retail retail. You buy it on the internet. And I know it's taking off in many countries now, but in China this has been going for a long time. My wife just buys all the stuff online now. Hardly goes out. The retail is really suffering. The shops are really suffering.
That's like in the States too.
Yeah.
What is that called? Where it comes from? What's the company?
Taobao. There's a number of them. Taobao is the main one.
Oh, okay.
Tianmao, another one, and Tiandong, I think. But anyway, this.
They're all delivered right to the door by trucks, then?
Yeah, that's right. Mostly by guys on motorcycles.
Yeah.
Oh, really? On motorcycles?
Motorcycles, that's cool. Yeah.
Carrying around town, creating chaos.
Yeah, it's also it's not great for the environment either with all these trucks around here.
Yeah, I guess so.
Amazon. Yeah.
There is an environmental cost to doing stuff door to door. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to your book, you write that we are ensnared in a techno dystopia where the internet, politics, and society have been weaponized, leaving our souls defeated. So is there any hope for us?
Well, it's definitely hope, yeah. That might be slightly hyperbolic. I'm pretty much an optimist myself, but that does sound rather pessimistic. I mean, dystopia and utopia are relative terms. I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful things about society today, and I think we have such amazing opportunities as people that we should not lose sight of that fact. So I think for me at least the positive far outweighs the negative, and so many people have lived through human history without the opportunities that we get.
That's true.
If you look at our species, whenever you want to mark the beginning of Homo sapiens, it might be 100,000 years, or if you want to go back to other hominid species, it's maybe 3 million years. Most of them, our ancestors, lived and died and had very harsh lives, and were at the whim of forces that they had little control over, maybe some. And we have a lot more control over our lives, and we live longer lives than there's typical lives. I mean, going even back 200 years, I think, 40% of children died before the age of 5. If you visit some
Wow.
old cemeteries, you'll see how many children graves are in cemeteries. It's quite staggering. It must have been very hard to be a parent, in those days. We forget, your mother, you might have had 6, 10, 12 children, possibly.
God.
And yeah, it does seem extremely painful. My mother
Seems
had eight children.
wow.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of kids.
Yeah. Well, in my family, one of my mother's children died before the age of 3, and another one died at 21. And that was in modern times. Yeah, because they mostly died from, I guess, from immune problems, diseases. There weren't vaccines. Hospitals may not have been readily available for a lot of people. Lives were tough. A lot of people were poor too in agrarian societies. So, the local hospital wasn't necessarily there. Anyway, my point is, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that we have a lot of wonderful things, and gratitude is extremely important, even when times are tough, and it actually helps you. I know not everyone has a great life. I mean, I had a pretty difficult life when I was younger, and so I'm not in any way trying to disrespect people who have suffering. But if you look at the entirety of the world, and including the difficult places that people might be living in right now, it's probably considerably better than it once was, despite the fact that we have first world problems, such as the cost of housing and things like this, which do place a lot of stress on people.
But that's true in China too? The cost of housing is...
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's become a real problem here. All around my town, where I live, you can see all these apartments. People, people got rich here quite quickly after the 1980s, 1990s. That's not unusual for people to have had 5 apartments,
Wow.
The problem is that they keep building them. So then when you want to sell the things, you can't get rid of them. And they're still building all these new ones that are going up around town.
What about the cost of food? Is that expensive?
Yeah, it's been going up. There's a bit of inflation with food costs as well, like fruit and vegetables. So I guess it's probably pretty similar to other Western countries. There's an increase in inflation. It's not staggering, but it is noticeable.
Yeah. So I think one of the advantages of the advanced technology, especially the AI, is saving a lot of time. I mean, the new book that Trish mentioned when she read the intro there about synchronicity, I started working on the audiobook and working with John, and we'd spend an hour and we'd stop and go, and to do the first chapter, I think it took us 3 or 4 hours of getting together. And then John he can maybe tell us more about this, but he discovered a way of taking 10 minutes of I think it was just 10 minutes of my voice.
Yes.
And that almost instantly was able to make the entire book. And
Yes, I've been teaching my kids about some of this stuff, most my students as well. But I've not actually used that technology. But that is one of the. I didn't realize because there are companies that sell that software, right? So, including your own image as well, you can just plug it in and away you go.
And we won't plug anybody on the podcast, but as far as the company we use to start that process, but the amazing thing, and that's really where what we're calling AI, in my opinion, at this point, is really just generative AI, and it is amazing how it really is amazing how when just getting enough audio in there to like you said, roughly 10 minutes of audio. And could train the language model to even put his inflections into the way he would pronounce words and attack certain sentences and stuff. It was pretty amazing.
So you found the quality is pretty good?
Oh yeah, it really is. I mean, Rob can speak.
sounds better than me, actually. You know, I mean, I stumble a lot, and no mistakes at all.
Maybe I should get that, because it takes me a hell of a lot of time to do. To do the work that I do, and I ran out of time with producing my recording some of my videos and blogs, and I'm trying to do a online course as well. So I might be able to use it. I never really thought of that. So thanks for the tip.
Well, I'll send you the link to the service that we used. Of course, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, that it's plugged into it's using OpenAI framework, but yeah, with a specific focus on creating digital voices. So yeah.
Did that book go up?
It hasn't yet.
Oh, okay. I thought I was missing
we're still working on finishing up. It does make mistakes. Rob, you didn't hear you. Well, actually, I think you did hear one. It won't.
There were a couple.
It would glitch every once in a while, but it really was just going in and just copying like the paragraph before and the paragraph after, let it process that, and then could drop it in. But to Rob's point, much faster than it's much faster than removing the time it took us to get spooled up on Zoom and read through chapters.
Yeah, it would have cost taken us maybe 25, 30 hours to do that.
Jeez.
I think more than that, but yeah.
You're probably right.
Entire week.
The way we were going, it would have. So
yeah, it's time consuming and tiring as well, even.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Trish.
Well, I'm just wondering, what is digital wisdom, Marcus, and how do you create conscious relationships with these new technologies, or do you?
Well, digital wisdom is just a framework I developed. In fact, I just finished writing a book chapter on it for somebody. So the original idea of digital wisdom, digital literacy, which began in the 1990s, was mostly focusing on how to use technologies in a smart way and being literate, and that eventually developed into over time they added a few social skills and how to do teamwork with other people on using these technologies. But I thought this is not quite a sufficient way to teach people. It's not sufficient in itself, I don't think. So basically, my idea of digital literacy wisdom has three domains: know the machines, know the humans, and know thyself. So know the machines is basically the original digital literacy. So you're trying to learn some basic concepts about how technologies function and how you can use them. You could argue about which skills or aptitudes you could learn. I would suggest that people learn about how algorithms function at a practical level, not coding necessarily, so that at least they understand the concept of echo chambers, or what would you call it, audience capture, where creators tend to get captured by their audience and then find they can't really bust out of it because they get punished by the algorithm, these kind of things. And the concept of surveillance capitalism, how big tech employs these, what I would call toxic profit models, and which cause problems, many of the problems that we know on the internet. So that's know the machines. Know the humans is the second part of digital wisdom, and I would say that is understanding essential human biology and cultures to the point where you can have an essential understanding of some of the common problems that we experience when we take this human anatomy and we put it into online systems, such as tribalism, for example. How does that tend to function at a practical level? And how can you spot when you are part of a tribe and have allowed yourself to give your power away to it? That's kind of what I teach.
Sounds like brainwashing.
Yeah, brainwashing, suggestion, repeated exposure to ideas, ways to be able to unplug from the algorithm. They're very basic ways. Many many sites where you can go incognito, for example, or just unuse the cookies, or whatever the correct term is.
Eat the cookies.
Eat the cookies.
So in your in your work in your studying futurism, you use a couple of terms. Like if you could talk about what the difference between strategic foresight is and transformational foresight.
Okay. First, I'll just mention the third part of digital wisdom, which is know thyself, which is the inner work part.
Oh, right? Okay.
Yeah, so that's the basis of digital wisdom, actually. So this is where all the first person exploration comes in: mindfulness, meditation, perhaps dream work and journaling. Now, as for the difference between strategic foresight and transformational foresight, well, this is a debate that's gone on in the foresight or future studies community, and it's there is a bit of a culture clash there. Well, strategic foresight basically means the futurist or the foresight practitioner will go and work with organizations on the ground floor in a practical way. And so they may get caught up in the short-term goals, like helping the company optimize their profits or their efficiency, solve problems on the ground, trend analysis, these kind of things, so that the company can strategize for the future. But it may not be transformational in the sense that it may not encourage the company or the organization to think deeply about where they're going and what their role is in society, which is something that may not impact their immediate bottom line in terms of profits, but in the long run, it may well, if they last long enough, it certainly will. And it's also important for us all, I think, to contribute to society. So transformational foresight is really sometimes called planetary foresight. It is keeping an eye on big pictures, worldview, paradigm challenging, challenges narrative and mythology, looks at the deeper mythic levels of human evolution. So it might challenge dominant science or dominant scientific paradigms, such as the mechanical machine metaphor, which tends to dominate science. It depends on the practitioner, but quite often it will be moving towards deep futures, which are long-term civilizational futures, not just immediate thinking about what's happening in the next 10 years.
Marcus, how do you see disinformation increasing through all this technology?
Well, that's a bit of a minefield, disinformation. It's there are several different aspects to the problem. It can be used, even everything can be weaponized, including the idea of disinformation. So this is where it becomes a bit tricky. Who decides what is disinformation and not? Well, disinformation, of course, is deliberate deception.
Right.
So if I tell you a lie, there's going to be I don't know, maybe there's going to be, the economy is going to collapse next month. I know I've got inside information. I'm just trying to cause trouble. That would be disinformation if I knew it wasn't correct. But if someone told me that and I was really worried about it, and then I decided to tell you, it would just be misinformation because I was just telling you something I misunderstood.
That's,
of course.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
but that's interesting. The way you presented that, because that's kind of the yelling fire in the theater.
Yes, that's
argument.
right.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah. So, in your future study of the future, do you see possibility of China moving towards becoming a democracy? Any chance of that?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it too much. It's not really something that Chinese people think about a lot. And I think it's not really considered a priority here. But it's interesting with the problems that Western countries have had in the last decade or so,
Yeah, it seems to be going the opposite direction towards autocratic rule.
Yeah, there's less enthusiasm for Western cultures overall, I think, and democracy thing. So there's not really a lot of people pushing for it that I'm aware of.
Huh.
But of course, there's, it's difficult even if you wanted to. So it's hard to get a scope. But my sense is that I speak to a lot of Chinese people, and almost nobody talks about it, really. It's not really something that is a priority. You have to remember China traditionally is not a democratic society. It was basically a kingdom for thousands of years. And the idea was that the emperor was at the top of the chain. And the emperor was supposed to initiate the mandate of heaven. So they were supposed to be to be a voice of the divine on the earth, in theory. And then the people below, the different classes within the society, which would include the scholars and the military, and then down through society, would fall into their place in society, and that's how you would function. And so they had the concept of Hershia, which is harmony. And so the idea is that people operate in harmony with each other, and that's where the Tai Chi movements come in, where people are doing the things together. So there's more of a collectiveness there. Of course, when things, when the stuff hits the fan, people do revolt in China. There's plenty of examples of people revolting.
You'd mentioned the one in COVID. They were people around the streets, and then also Tiananmen Square seemed like a window towards change.
That was a long time ago.
It was shut down very quickly, but
that was more of a violent uprising and put down. So, through Chinese history, though, there have been quite a few such things. For example, in the 1870s, 1890s, there was a huge revolt called the Taiping Rebellion. And basically there was, and this is one of the reasons why the Chinese government is a bit wary of revolts. Yeah. I forgot the name of the guy, but he said he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ's brother. And he led a rebellion.
In China, I mean, like people use the I Ching with clients, or
I believe.
Hey, real quick, guys. Sorry, but I just had 2 freezes on my end, so I completely missed whatever you guys were saying for like the last almost minute.
Oh, okay.
So I'm hope. As far as I can tell, still got connectivity, but on my end, I lost audio and everything. So anyway, so if y'all just if Trish,
we're talking about divination.
If you can repeat your question, and then I'll edit this out. But
let's go from there.
I was just asking Marcus if there's any kind of fortune telling, if people use the I Ching or read cards for other clients, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the I Ching is used a lot in business, I understand. That a lot of business people will use it when they're deciding who to work with, for example. I've never actually seen that, but I believe that it's true, and I've spoken to people who say that it's true. So I have no reason to doubt it. I'm just not there when they're doing it. So
well, Marcus, you need to go. Get rid.
Yeah, maybe I should monetize that. But as for more, what you would think of like an intuitive, because the I Ching has a system of runes or whatever it is that they use. It's not quite the same thing as someone using. Well, tarot cards. They're a different process. A lot of people who use tarot cards use their intuition to do a reading. around when they interpret the cards right. And some people are extremely accurate with tarot cards. Yet, people do use tarot cards. In Hong Kong, I know people who are do tarot card readings, and there's some New Age centers, I guess you would call them that, book centers in Hong Kong. You can go there. I know a woman there who has one. So people, a lot of Chinese people are interested in those things, especially when the economy's bad. Kind of normal. So
is
there
intuition
is definitely this going on here.
Yeah, is intuition a part of futurism? Using these intuitive skills?
Not normally in formal foresight.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are futurists that talk about it and say it's important. In 2015, for the Journal of Future Studies, for example, I wrote an article with 5 other futurists about intuitive aspects of foresight. You can still find that online if you like. And one of the articles was written by Barbara Marx Hubbard. You may have heard of her. She's a biologist.
Familiar,
And she was
married to Hubbard, right?
Yeah. She died not long after, but unfortunately, so it's not normally a part of formal future stuff. But when I go to conferences, and I've talked about integrated intelligence a lot at conferences, never had a problem with it, because futurists that hang around in my circles, and including in Asia, they're very open people, because futurists are pretty weird anyway, right? So my weirdness is just one weirdness amongst many. Many people are open to these kind of things.
Yeah, and you call it integrated intelligence. Is that the term you use for?
Yeah, that's just a term that I developed early on, which is just to suggest that we're drawing in information all the time, and we can bring it into consciousness or access it deliberately, and then use it for decision making in relationships, and so on. Mm-hmm. And there were seven aspects to integrated intelligence, if I can remember them all. So foresight, or four senses, I call it, as one is intuiting futures as they unfold. And the other one is synthesizing information, drawing information, getting a sense of how things fit together. And inspiration as well is another one, or creativity. And I'm just trying to remember the other ones. How
about
location?
How about synchronicity?
What's that?
How about synchronicity?
Well, it's not a formal part of what I included in there, but I guess synchronicity is paying attention to what is happening in the world in terms of its symbolism. But I didn't formally include that in the theory or that framework. Yeah. But I've written a bit about synchronicity here and there, because as you mentioned, my book, Discovery of a Soul Template, was originally called Sage of Synchronicity, until they asked me to change it. I think my name was better, but anyway.
Who asked you to change it? The editor?
Oh, the company, Inner Traditions.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Yeah, I like the Sage of Synchronicity.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, but there was some Discover books around at that time that were doing well. It was Discover something or other. So anyway, they decided to go with Discover, and I said, okay, why not?
Well, we will repurpose that. That'll be the name of the episode. So this episode will be Sage of Synchronicity.
Yes, I like that.
Hey, that's a good one.
Okay, maybe the copyrights run out for them. I don't know. Maybe I can steal it back.
Yeah, right. Do you have synchronicities in your life?
Oh yeah, quite a lot. Yeah, I mean, synchronicity really is, I think, the interface of consciousness and cosmos, or self, and the world. And I've written about a few of them. You might have remembered the one about Anita Moorjani. Did you remember that one? I told about her, the woman who wrote "Dying to Be Me."
Vaguely. I vaguely recall. Tell it again. That's a good one.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
When I was in Hong Kong, around about 2011, I think, and I was in a bookshop in Hong Kong, and at the IFC, which is a big building. You don't need to know that. And they had this bookshelf out the front with all the old books they were trying to get rid of cheap. And I stumbled across Anita's book, Dying to Be Mean. You know, one of these things like that. You know, it was like I was drawn to it, and I picked it up, and it really resonated with me. And I thought, you know, I get a feeling I'm going to meet this woman. You know, I had a really strong feeling of connectedness with her. And so I went, and I looked at the book, and I learned from the book that she actually lived in Hong Kong somewhere, and I didn't know. You know, there's 7 million people in Hong Kong. And anyway, I was on the train going back and reading the book, and I just felt that she was somewhere near me. I could feel it. But I looked around, couldn't see her. There was a little picture of her on the back cover, on the back cover, right? But I went home, and I went out with my friends that night, and we were going to go to a restaurant to eat. And then one of them said, "Let's go to the Indian restaurant," because you know, Anita is Indian by descent. And I thought, that's interesting, synchronicity as well. So we went along, but she wasn't there. But I went home, and the next morning I woke up. I went to the coffee shop where I lived in Discovery Bay, which is an island off the coast, basically on an island off the coast of Hong Kong. And I was sitting there, and I was doing some work, actually writing, and I had the book beside me, and there was some people sitting in the table in front of me, you know, and I could look at them, and they looked Indian, and the woman who was sitting with her back towards me, I was looking at, that looks a bit like Anita, you know. I was looking at the picture on the back, and I think that's her. There's like a little mole here, I think, you know. I thought, no, I couldn't be, you know. So I went back to my work. I'm a terrible introvert. And then as I was working, suddenly I looked up, and this guy actually named Danny was there saying, "Is that a good book?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Is that Anita?" He said, "Yeah, it is. Come and have a talk."
Wow. That is great.
And so I ended up talking to her, and yeah, so that was really a really wonderful synchronicity. And she said that these kind of things happened a lot. Yeah. But it did end there as well. Actually, that night I had this dream where I saw the front of my blog has a picture of a guy standing above the earth from a spaceship. And I had this dream where I saw this image on the front of my blog, and this guy was standing there, and there was like a what would you call it? An indicator which was indicating some sort of clock. So when I woke up and I remembered it, I think that means that I'm going to get a lot of hits on my blog today, and because I only normally got a few, and then I went to my blog and I had like 2,000 hits already on my blog.
Wow.
And I worked out that, so I contacted Anita and I said, did you tell anyone about our connection? And she had, but the interesting thing is she didn't tell anybody for several hours after I had the dream. So I had the dream before she told anyone. So it had precognitive.
Precognitive, yeah. Interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I get lots of dreams like that. I get lots of precognitive dreams.
Yeah.
We should ask you about the U.S. election.
Well, I try to stay away. Though I get kind of annoyed by politics, and I'm not American. But I did see something 2 days before. I saw an image appear of Kamala Harris, and then her name was written over the picture, and it was fading. The name was fading into light pencil, and my sense of that was that she's going to fade away in terms of the election. So that was my interpretation at the time. I mean, I've been wrong before, but that was
that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you do personal counseling, don't you, as a life coach? Could you talk a bit about what that involves and the type of clients you have?
Yeah, I haven't been doing it a lot recently, but I've done a lot over the years, both in person and online. So it depends on what the person wants. I can teach people about intuitive intelligence and how to develop their integrated intelligence. A lot of the time I work with people on inner child work or healing work as well, because I've done a lot of healing work. I'm not just an intellectual. I work a lot with the emotional body. So that also gives me a bit of a gift, if you like, to be able to see into people's energy field, or including trauma and emotional problems and some of their energy connections with other people. And through that, I can unravel, if you like, or narratives, or soul stories, really, that people have, because our soul stories tend to repeat themselves until we bring them into consciousness. And
I mean, from life to life, you're talking about?
Life to life, or even within one lifetime, you can repeat the same story, because our stories are multifaceted. There are big stories, and then there are small stories within them, meta stories and minor stories. So they can repeat, and even people who have a lot of awareness can repeat them unconsciously. I mean, life is, the journey isn't easy sometimes. So I've repeated some mistakes that I've made in the past, although I'm certainly glad that I developed the insights that I have, because I really needed to be able to apply these kind of things directly in order to be able to live any kind of normal life. So it's been pretty helpful for me.
So real quick, but that's once again something you just said really triggered a thought. But I kind of wonder if maybe because, well, and we don't have time to go into maybe it wouldn't even be a discussion, but into AI as a marketing term, but maybe that's what it should be called right now, is II, intuitive intelligence, because that's really kind of what it does for us right now, is kind of collect those signals and give us some insight, maybe where things are headed. So just a thought.
Yeah, it can act as certainly as a tutor or a mentor in that way. So it can be very useful in many ways, and you can also, there are multiple ways that you can use it to enhance a spiritual journey. If you look at some of the dreams that I had, I actually rendered them through AI imagery and put them on my YouTube channel. So some of the images from my dreams, I literally created them and put them so you can share the dream more vividly and show people what had happened. That's one way that you can do it. And now what was the question? I've kind of gotten off track here. So I think one point I would make is that the more you rely on the technologies, though, you may undermine your own intuitive ability if you over rely on them. So I think it's important to keep working on yourself and keep an eye on yourself. But you can, as you get intuitions, you can test them through the technologies. For example, if you get an intuition about moving somewhere, well, then you can just go to the machine and see if your sense of what that place is correct or not. And there are multiple ways that you can explore intuitions using these technologies. You can test them. I think you should test intuitions. That's one of the ways that you can get feedback from the world.
But isn't there also sometimes a delusional aspect to intuition? And I'm referring
what do you mean delusional?
Well, okay, I'm referring to an interview we did with you 12 years ago, and you were talking about your work with personal counseling as a life coach. You had a woman who had a very high opinion of herself, that she was some kind of advanced being, and she was kind of frustrated that things weren't working out as it should for an advanced being, and other people had apparently told her that she was this advanced being, and you saw this, that she was living in this delusion. Do you remember that at all? That particular?
I don't remember that, but that story it's really just the nature of the ego, right? So it's not something particularly unusual, and some people may get a bit carried away, but we're all like that to some degree. We develop false perceptions of ourselves, and then we may stumble through the world until such time as we see that they're not true, or there's some problem with it. with like what I would call the the Christ complex, basically, or this, which is the spiritual ego, which is a very common thing, and I think all spiritual practitioners probably experience it to some degree, and believing that we're better than other people or have some special mission. We may have a special mission, by the way, but it's important that we bring awareness to how we may use it as a compensation for our own sense of inadequacy, instead of working on the part of ourselves which is wounded and feels diminished. Because then you can cause problems for other people if you don't address that.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be part, and that would be testing your intuition, whether it's using the technology or stepping outside the technology, especially, well, stepping outside the bubble, whatever your bubble may be, group of people that you have around you, some social network group, whatever it is, stepping outside that and seeing if reality matches up, right?
Yeah, I guess the original question was about intuition. So here, I guess it's a person's sense of themselves. Yeah, so you get organizations, which get together and give people power, and so you end up with a cult-like situation. This is very common in spiritual groups. It's not unusual. So people in these groups, but you learn from it if you experience it. Lots of people have this experience, and they realized, okay, I gave my power away to somebody. Hopefully it's not Jim Jones or someone like that.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's an ego fall, right? Eventually the ego builds itself up. It can't sustain itself.
Yeah,
So
that's what you had said in that interview, that this woman would eventually have a fall, recognizing the delusion, and the bigger the delusion, the greater the fall. But you also said there's advantages there. There's an upside that you discover your authentic self when you get past the delusion.
Yeah, it's potentially true. So ego falls are not a bad thing as long as you take the fall right. And if you don't take the fall, then you can end up creating chaos, or going to self-destruction. So ego falls, people and groups have ego falls. Nations have ego falls. So it's a part of. The story will repeat itself, and then there'll be a collapse. And if they don't learn from it, they'll build the story again, and then it will collapse. So you go through a cycle of ego falls and building the ego and then falling. Ideally, you learn from it so that you actually evolve or develop and expand the light of the self, not the ego.
Yeah.
There's a distinction there.
So we're in a world that's dominated by external fluences, and so how do we discover this inner self, or the authentic self, when we have all these things coming at us?
We just got to make it a priority, right? To spend time every day. I spend time every day. I usually start off in the morning every day. Doing a meditation. Quite often it's an emotional process as well. If I feel any energy moving through me that might be to do with my personal trauma, for example, I may give it a voice. If it's anger, I might just bang a pillow for a little bit, just give it a voice and listen to what it's saying, and then assume responsibility for it. This part of it is part of inner child work for me. That's one of the ways that I do it. So mindfulness for me is not just bringing attention to the body, but it's also bringing attention to the emotional body as well. So having a conscious relationship with the feelings. Because the feelings then lead into the stories. Because the feeling, if there's anger, there's usually a story behind it, like nobody loves me, or nobody's listening to me. They always betray me, whatever it is. So that once you go into the anger, the story will arise, and then you can reparent yourself as you see the story and the beliefs that are associated with it. So that's what I do. I bring consciousness. I make time almost every day for that. If you don't make the time, then sure. If the first thing you do when you get up in the morning is turn your phone on and play with it for 3 hours, then you will be lost. I don't think there's anything that is more certain than if you went on to some of these social media platforms and started arguing with people at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, you kiss your life goodbye, basically. But there's a lot of people that do that,
Yeah.
A lot of people that can't seem to separate themselves from the technology. So you just got to discipline yourself. Think, all right, I'm not going to turn the damn thing on for the first 3 hours, and that's that. That's what I do.
That's cool.
Marcus, what is the word on your shirt mean? Mizung?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. I keep seeing.
Well, I bought this in Thailand, so.
Oh, okay.
It's probably just the name of it. Could be the name of a sporting company or.
Thought maybe it was some type of saying that relates to what you're talking about.
And just real quick, just so we don't take up a whole lot more of Marcus's time, we did start 30 minutes early, so we may be at that point where we need to wrap up. Just don't want to monopolize your time.
Yeah, and it's pretty late for you, right?
Yeah.
It's okay, I get a bit more time, but
yeah,
if you want to talk a bit about something else, I'll wrap it up. Both are okay with me.
Yeah. Can you talk? Question: Can you talk freely about consciousness and spiritual development at your college, and in China in general? Is there?
Well, I think in China in general, it's not such a big problem, as long as they've loosened up the culture of spirituality here, and I think especially if you frame it through the Chinese history, through Taoism and Buddhism, it's normally okay. They do get a bit antsy with people who get huge followings. Like there was a guy who had a company called Crazy English. I can't remember his name, but he'd have these huge arenas full of people, and they'd be chanting sayings in English, and they got a bit scared of him, so they shut him down. That was about 10 years ago. So they can do that, but I've been in groups here in China with people, hundreds of people, and some people even start talking about like the Cultural Revolution and things like this, which are forbidden, and nobody got hauled away. Yeah, but you got to keep an eye on these things. One of my teachers actually moved his business to Thailand from China because he was a bit worried about it. He hadn't been here since before COVID. I told him, I think it's okay what you do. He just does mindfulness. And he worked in Beijing before. I was with him, and he did a pretty good job, and nobody cared. So I think it's okay. Intuition in my classrooms. I've got a bit more courageous with that in recent times. I do talk more about personal development. I don't normally use the word spirituality, but sometimes I do. And I talk about integrated intelligence as well. I talked about that, and I try to frame it in the Chinese sense. I even got the students a couple of times to do to test their ability to use their intuition. Rupert Sheldrake's telephone experiment, for example.
Right.
Telephone.
That's a good one.
So I got the students to get into groups of 5, and one person will call the other people, have to pick up the phone and try to guess which of the other 4 is calling them, and use a random number generator to do that. That's just fun. I tell them it's just fun, Just see what you think. I'm not telling you what's right and wrong, and they like it. They really like doing that. And so far, I haven't been hauled away.
Sounds good. So,
Marcus, I'm curious. Do a lot of people have pets in China?
Yeah,
like dogs and cats and.
Yeah, there's a lot of pets here. Yeah, in fact, we've got 4 cats.
4 cats.
And there's a whole bunch of them in the compound, and we feed some of them. So there's another like 3 or 4 outside that are basically ours that are free out there, but they come back every day and give them food.
Huh.
Yeah, but there's been some issues with in some parts of China, some of the local governments, like during COVID, apparently were rounding up pets. And anyway, if they'd have come for my pets, there would have been a showdown, I can tell you.
Yeah. So one
That's for
final
sure.
question here, Marcus. Do you have spiritual guidance in your work and life? And if so, how do you get it?
I mean, a
How do
team?
you, yeah, like a team. Are you in? How are you in touch? Or
Oh, you mean with like spiritual guides, you mean?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't necessarily know them by name, but I'm in a continual state of prayerfulness, as I call it.
Hmm.
Over the years, I have had visitations from what appear to be spirit guides,
Yeah.
and even to the point where I could, but usually when in like a deep meditative state, I have not actually seen one in like appear at my, at the kitchen table or
Yeah.
something like that. But I
What
regularly
about
get,
ETs?
what's that?
Any
ET.
contact with ETs?
I used to have some connectedness, it seemed.
Yeah, I remember that we talked
Yeah.
about that years ago. You had
Yeah.
some experience. What about in China? Are there UFOs sighted in China? Is that a thing there?
Yeah, kind of. It's not too many sightings. But a lot of people are interested in them though. So there's
People
this.
people get abducted? Are there Chinese abduction stories?
I've not heard of abductions in China, to be honest.
Yeah,
I've not
interesting.
heard of that. But there's definitely people interested in UFO culture here. So
Yeah.
someone guy gave me a book in Beijing about that. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. Where can people find your book?
In your website?
Not through my website at the moment, but just on Amazon.com, of course. So all my books are available there. Most of them are in hard copy as well as Kindle format. Most of them are self-published. Some of them are published through publishers, but Power and Presence is available in hard copy and also a Kindle version. So yeah,
Okay.
Amazon would be the best place to go to get it.
Right, and maybe you can get it out in audio too, using this new method.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'll push the link to that service to Rob, and he can
Yeah,
forward it on to you. And we'll put a link in the description to the new book. And one last thing, this is completely out of left field, and that's probably would not rate as a synchronicity at all, but I used to have a blog, and I actually still own the domain, and it was fuzzyintuition.com. I still own that, and Fuzzy Intuition was specific. It was it was a kind of a slant on fuzzy logic. So fuzzyintuition.com. Still own that domain. Haven't done anything with it in a long time, but we talked so much about intuition, I just thought I'd mention that. So.
Fuzzy intuition. That's good, John.
well, intuition is fuzzy. It is a fuzzy intelligence. Like you alluded to, that it can be, you can get distortions of intuition, which is very, very true. So you've got to practice it and develop it, and keep an eye out for those distortions. So that's a very important part of developing human intuition.
Great talking to you again.
Yeah, this is fun, Marcus.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, good to last time didn't we just do it through? Did we do it on video last time, or was it just
No,
it was just sound.
This is the first time we've actually talked.
Yeah.
It's always been through the digital world.
Yeah, I couldn't remember doing the video part, so usually that means that we didn't do it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Not always. Sometimes I just forget.
Yeah.
Well, take care, and this has been great. Thank you so much. And John, when's it going to go up?
Man, I hate. We got. I believe 2 weeks from today. I believe. Yeah.
We'll send you the link.
Yeah.
Send you a link.
Yeah, thanks, John, Trish, and Rob. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'll keep an eye out for your blog as well. Where is it?
TheMysticalUnderground.com.
Don't have like a YouTube channel or something like that, just the blog?
No, it's called The Mystical Underground, the YouTube.
Yeah, well, it's YouTube / at the Mystical Underground on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, I'll definitely check that out. Sorry, I didn't I've been quite busy lately, so
I know the feeling for sure. It's yeah. Anyways, but yeah, thanks for coming on. Awesome
thank
conversation.
you, Marcus. We'll be in touch.
thanks everyone. See you later.
Take care.
Right on.
Have a good day. All right, bye.
Thank you.